Hi, my name is Fel. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've been on here, and honestly, I've missed yapping nonstop to a camera. I tried short form content, but it's kind of hard to edit my yapping to fit TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram, so I'm back to my first love, aka YouTube videos. Anyway, today I will be sharing my July reading log with y'all, or to whoever clicks on this video. Why am I doing this? It is August 2nd right now, and I cannot progress with my August TBR without having done a July reading log. I don't know. I just can't. It's a commitment slash closure issue, and I just really need to talk about the books that I read in July since it was kind of a good month. I read 6 books in total, so I will be telling you guys the amount of stars I rate them, what I like, what I disliked, and my favorite quote from the book, and I'm going to try not to spoil anything at all. And without further ado, let's start! So I started off July by reading The Ballad of Falling Dragons by Sarah H. Parker. This is book 2 of the Moonfall series. I read book 1, which is When the Moon Hatched, like sometime during the last week of June. Now, I gave this book 4 stars. I gave When the Moon Hatched, I think, a 3 or a 3.5. Okay, things that I liked about The Ballad of Falling Dragons. It's very epic fantasy coded. This entire series is very epic fantasy coded. You have dragons, you have a unique magic system, you have amazing world building that has its own gods, mythologies, creatures, and legends. It has a unique world system as well, which I really like. It also has political intrigue, and it's just very adventure coded. It reminded me a lot about some of the short stories that you would read that feel kind of like Lord of the Rings fan fiction. Like, you get what I'm saying. It's that kind of vibe, which should have been the perfect recipe for a 5-star read for me. Except, throughout the 700 pages of this book, while I did enjoy it immensely better than When the Moon Hatched, I was still in a constant state of, when am I gonna finish this? How long do I have to go? I cannot wait to finish this book. I'm going to try and finish it this week. It kind of felt like that. Although towards the end I was bawling my eyes out, I don't know, it kind of fell short for me, and this was the same thing with When the Moon Hatched, and I think a lot of my opinions regarding the book is coming from the fact that it's written in first person POV, which I am not the biggest fan of. The prologue of book 1 and the epilogue of book 1, as well as some of the character POVs in book 2, some of them are written in third person, and I enjoyed those a lot more than I did the first person chapters. That's just a me thing. I feel like it takes away some of the experience for me. But I've heard a lot of good reviews about the series. I'm going to read the next one when it comes out, and I'm so excited for that. So my favorite quote from this book, I'm gonna open up my Kobo for this, is, "This world is big and beautiful, but it's also ugly and cruel and unjust. There's only so much a heart can handle before it gives out. If you carry everything with you all at once, you'll break." This was said by Fallon in A Memory of Raves. That was book 1 for July. I read that for, I think, around 8 or 9 days. Next book that I read as a little palate cleanser between the heinous amounts of thick fantasy books that I was consuming, I decided to pick up I Am Not Jessica Chen by Anne Liang. Now this book, I did start this last year when I was in the middle of the Throne of Glass series, and I just didn't get around to finishing it. I think I stopped at around less than a quarter of the book, and that was also a problem this time around. I just had a hard time getting into this, but I give this book 4.5 stars. It is so good. The things that I liked, personally, I relate to our MC, who is Jenna Chen, so much. I like that the book talks about being Asian in a predominantly white privileged society and the amount of subtle racism that expats undergo, and the fact that you have to prove yourself over and over and over again, and some of you can be diversity hires or diversity students. And I just really like how this book was able to incorporate like fantasy elements in what is essentially a commentary on the perceptions of perfection, jealousy, expectations, and self-loathing, as well as learning your self-worth. I really love the character character arc that Jenna undergoes throughout this whole story, and I also really love the perspective of Jessica throughout all of this. It just feels so relatable as somebody who identifies as both Jenna and Jessica, and I just feel like this book made me feel so seen. Things that I didn't like, again, it's kind of hard to like get into when you're in the first few chapters. There are times when it felt like the first quarter of the book was just repetitive or just didn't feel like there was much going on, and that was what made me stop last year, but thankfully I persevered for it this time and I did not regret that decision. It's written in first person like a lot of contemporary fiction is, but I didn't mind it as much. Plus, I really like the romantic interest in this. Aaron's high. So my favorite quote from this, I have a lot, but I will be saying this one. Success is such a beautiful thing. It's so intimate, so heart-achingly personal. I can feel it in my very blood. It's the closest you'll ever fly to the sun, the closest you'll ever get to immortality. Why is this one of my favorite quotes? It sums up my own struggle to constantly strive for perfection in all of the things that I do, considering I was really high achieving growing up, and that's something that I maintain until now, that I'm literally in my 5th year of college. But it's kind of hard to separate myself from those achievements, and that is why I felt very seen during the time that I was reading this, and it just put a lot of things into perspective for me. So that is my second read of the month, and I really enjoyed it. Moving forward, now this was my most anticipated July read. I think I have a YouTube short uploaded about it. I did this as a buddy read with my best friend on hardbound. So that is Alchemized by Senlin Yu. I'm kind of lazy to get my hardbound cover over there. This book, 6 stars. Oh my god. This book is 1,060 pages on hardbound, and I read most of it there. I would just sometimes read it on my Kobo when I really wanted to read it, but I hadn't been able to bring the book that day. Not once did I feel like I was rushing through it. There was not a single moment where I felt, oh, when is this gonna end? When am I gonna finish it? Am I close to the last chapter, or am I close to finishing this part? Instead, I was really afraid of like finishing the book. I was constantly thinking, oh my gosh, how long do I have left? How many chapters do I have left? I'm already halfway through. I was thinking like that for most of the time that I was reading it, and I was, ugh. Okay. 6-star read. It's kind of difficult to talk about without spoiling it, but my favorite parts of this book were its commentary on women who are smarter and more capable than the people around them. Oh, I'm tearing up thinking about this book, but the things that Helena went through. It's not even the love story that gets me, it's the things that she went through and the things that she did for the sake of a cause that honestly wasn't even her fight. There was a lot of commentary about being an outsider, of being ostracized, of being a woman during the war. I loved this book with my whole heart. It's also an interesting study on perspective, because there are 2 sides to the story as always, and I think there's a quote about it in the book that talks about the stories of previous wars, and Luke is telling Helena that, but it wasn't like that before, it's not like that in the stories that were told to me. And then Helena just tells him that, what if they pick and choose the things that make it to the stories? What if they picked and chose the things that are being passed down just so that it feels like everything was good? But it's impossible for everything to have been good during a war. And she was so right. I loved this book. Things that I disliked, the amount of emotional trauma I went through reading it, but it was so good. It was so worth it. My favorite quote, I have a lot of favorite quotes, but this one, it's not the happiest, honestly, but this really put things into perspective for me when I was reading it. Now, it didn't matter if she'd been an alchemist or a healer or anything else. To anyone who ever learned of it, she would only be that one thing. Women were always defined by the lowliest thing they could be called. I cried when I read that line. I am telling you, I cried. The last line of this goddamn book made me so angry. I wasn't even crying when I finished this book. I was so angry. You have to read it. Honestly, that's the only way that you could understand what I'm talking about. So 6 stars, and then you have my entire heart. Let's move on, shall we? The next book that I read, this is something that I've been seeing on Book Talk and I've heard so many good things about. It wasn't initially on my TBR, but then my curiosity got the better of me because the second book was circulating as an arc already, and I needed to know what the hype was about. So next book that I read was The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Now initially I wasn't entirely interested in this. I'm not a big night girl, but I'm glad that I did pick it up. I gave this book 4 stars, which, sorry, I feel like a lot of people are gonna dislike my opinion on that because this is a 5-6 star read for a lot of the people I've seen who've talked about it. But for me personally, it's 4 stars, and I feel like that's because I went into it with a lot of expectations already, and I feel like that ruined the experience for me somewhat, and that's a me problem. That's not the book's problem. Things that I like the commentary. I love commentary in books. The commentary this had on blind faith, the church, secularization, and all of that stuff was so profound. The concept of false gods and humans being, faulty. I loved every second of it. I lapped it up. And I love the sisterhood that was between Cybele and the rest of the diviners. That made me feel really sad because of what happens to them. And Cybele's dedication to them as well. Favorite character of the book though is the gargoyle. The quote that I'm going to say is actually from him as well. He's my favorite character. He's so funny and so profound. I cried multiple times because of him. Now, things that I disliked about this book. I feel like Rory and Cybele's relationship was so sudden. I just didn't see enough pining between the two of them to actually say that they're legendary lovers. I was so confused when they got together. I was like, but then again, I came from Alchemized, which is like twice as long as this book, so that's probably why I was feeling weird about the pacing. Another thing that I wasn't entirely on board about was it's written in first person POV again, but it's fine. It's fine. I still really liked it. So 4 stars, I'm really excited to read The Knave and the Moon, which is what got me curious about this in the first place because I kept seeing book talkers talk about it. Anyway, this one is my favorite passage from the book. This is said by the gargoyle, and that is, when you do the right thing for the wrong reason, no one praises you. When you do the wrong thing for the right reason, everyone does. Even though what is right and wrong depends entirely on the story you're living in. And no one says they need recognition or praise or love, but we all hunger for it. We all want to be special. Again, I am a sucker for commentaries on perception. Sue me. I really like that passage, and I love the fact that it was the gargoyle who said it. I love him. He's my favorite. Okay, let's move forward. The next book that I read was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. 3 stars. I am immensely disappointed. I loved Once Upon a Broken Heart. I loved that entire series. I ordered a special edition hardcover of the first book, and I'm so excited for the last one. But Caraval? I don't know. I don't know. I was so excited about it as well. This has been on my TBR for a while. Me and Kyla read it together again, but it just fell flat. I don't know. The story is so interesting. It had so much potential, but again, I feel like in execution, it lacked a lot of things. It also does not help the fact that I hate our FMC, which is Scarlett. She annoys the shit out of me. Donatella, also, I could bury her and not miss her. I hate their dynamics. Probably it's just not for me. The vibes. Yeah, I'm not even gonna continue reading the rest of the series. Kyla read the second book and she just told me it's not worth the time. She scanned through the last chapters and I had her spoil it for me because I wasn't picking up that book. Caraval is a 3 star for me, and I wish I could like it better, but I just don't see a silver lining. Those are Kyla's exact words, by the way. Let's move on to my last book of the month. Now this, I was worried about this because my favorite Greek retelling is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and this book is a retelling of the Iliad but from the perspective of the women who were encaptured by Greeks. So I read The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. 4.5 stars. I did not expect to love this book the way that I did, but it was so good. Things that I loved. It's so heavy, actually. It was a really heavy read, and it just highlighted the struggles of being a woman so much more to me, and that is something that I love to read about in books, but at the same time, it's kind of like, shit, I can't believe this is the reality of things. It's not fiction. Like, this actually happens in real life. And that was one of the difficult moments for me when I was reading this book. It was kind of hard to read about the things that those women went through, and knowing that it's something a lot of the women who are caught up in the crossfires of war today still go through. I don't know. This book was written in first person as well, from the point of view of Briseis, who is the queen of a fallen Trojan territory, and she was gifted to be the bedgirl of Achilles. And yes, it's first person, but I immensely enjoyed the writing of this book because it felt like Briseis was recounting a story to me, as if we were sitting around a campfire at night and she was telling me the story of her capture and her time as a Trojan lady in the Greek encampments of war. She would also treat the reader as if we were voices in her head. One of the things that I was really worried about going to this, because again, my favorite Greek retelling is the Song of Achilles, which is a love story. And obviously Achilles there is a lot different to the Achilles in this story. This is an audio that you could hear on TikTok quite often, describing Achilles. Great Achilles, brilliant Achilles, shining Achilles, godlike Achilles. How the epithets pile up. We never called him any of those things. We called him the Butcher. When I read that opening line, I was like, shit. Because I love Achilles. Achilles is like one of my favorite Greek heroes because of TSOA. And reading that passage, I was like, oh my god, what am I gonna see here? I'm not gonna spoil it for the people who haven't read this specific retelling yet, but one thing is for sure, Patroclus is still kind. His death still ripped my heart out, and it made me so sad but so happy at the same time that I guess no matter who is telling the story, Patroclus will always be portrayed the same way. That's my boy. God, I love Patroclus. He's like my favorite character ever. 4.5 stars. So I do have a favorite quote from this, and I have multiple. I'm gonna try and see which ones I will share. Oh gosh. This one. I'm gonna say this one because this is about Patroclus and Achilles. Isn't that love's highest aim? Not the interchange of two free minds, but a single fused identity. Gosh, I love this book. And I love how Briseis comments on the story of Patroclus and Achilles, saying that if it was somebody else telling it, it might even be a love story, which is such a subtle nod to TSOA that I... Can I share another one? I'm gonna share another one. This is my video. This is another favorite quote of mine from this book. How do you separate a tiger's beauty from its ferocity, or a cheetah's elegance from the speed of its attack? Achilles was like that. The beauty and the terror were two sides of a single coin. Again, we're talking about perception. My favorite topic ever. So, that was all of the books that I read in July. It was a good reading month because I had Alchemized in there as well as Silence of the Girls. So, yes, it was actually filled with books that had a lot of lessons that I could apply to my daily life as well, which is ultimately the goal of reading. It's more than just escaping reality, especially if you're like me who heavily reads fantasy. That is my preferred genre. I'm not the biggest fan of contemporary romance, contemporary fic, or like self-help books or nonfiction. I am a fantasy girl. It's good to know that the escape that comes with reading these books also brings a lot of lessons to me as the reader if you're only open-minded enough to see them. Okay, I'm pretty sure My camera moved because I took some things off of my shelf. Now that we're here, I'm done talking about my July reads. I'm going to discuss my August hopefuls with you guys because why not? First, I have 2 physical TBRs that I want to read this month because I have a really long list of physical books that I need to read, and progressively I'm not progressing because I keep reading on my Kobo, and most of the things that I read on my Kobo are not things that I have on my physical TBR anyway. So I want to get some of these over with, starting with the book that I already started on, Immortal by Su Lin Tan. I loved the Daughter of the Moon Goddess duology. Those 2 books, particularly Heart of the Sun Warrior, made me cry my eyes out. So as you can see, I'm actually, I think, almost a quarter of the ways through, and I have quite a few tabs already. It's a beautiful metal bookmark. I also picked this up because I am a sucker for Oriental fantasy or any Chinese mythology rooted fantasy because, you know, I'm Chinese. Sorry. My next physical TBR is this gorgeous piece of work. This is A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. Dragons. I love dragons. I love dragons in any book. That is partially why I got this. And it's so pretty as well. Look at the sprayed edges on this thing. I think this is the only book I have that has sprayed edges. I'm going to show you guys the inside. Look. That is so pretty. And also the end pages. This is the front. And this is the back end page. It's gorgeous. And I also got a matching bookmark to read it with. There we go. This is a Chinese dragon, but you know, it's a thought that counts. Those were my 2 physical TBRs for August, and then I have another 2 that I am going to read on my Kobo. I've already started on one of them actually. I've been wanting to get into a more epic fantasy coded, adventure coded, you know, book for a while now. I've been reading a lot of romantasy, and it's not that I don't like them, but I just want to read something that is more, you know, adventure. More The Hobbit, more The Lord of the Rings kind of style, because those were my favorite books growing up. I've settled on The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is Norse mythology based, which makes me really excited to read it. The second one that I want to read is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. I've heard a lot of good things about this series, and one of the reasons why I really want to read it is because I found a really pretty special edition in my local bookstore that, you know, I will buy if I deserve it, which means I have to read the first book. I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules. You gotta deserve a hardbound, especially if it's really expensive. You gotta deserve it, which means you gotta really like the series. That's my second TBR on my Kobo. And then some backups. I want to read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, which is another Greek retelling. I want to read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I want to read Weaving Shaw. I want to read Slewfoot, Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Parnack. I also really want to get into Robin Hobb's books. So Assassin's Apprentice is a hopeful of mine. But we'll see. I really want to read quite a few books this month, but you know, all in time, time will tell. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about books. If you made it this far, thank you so much. That is all from me tonight. Yes, tonight. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!